Hey, everybody. We have fellow podcaster with us tonight, Gail Hayssen. She's from a small, medium, at large podcast who just released their 6th episode. I believe today is when it drops. So go check that out. A small, medium, at large is the name of the podcast. And she's going to join us to talk about her gifts and her show as well, but also just to talk about the world of telepathic communication and psychic scientific experiments. She has a lifetime of stories to tell and only about an hour to fit those in. So Gail Hayssen is next. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is quite
then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
Okay, I didn't catch that. I corrected myself right at the end. It's Hayssen. I corrected myself right there. So if nobody caught that, that's what was being said.
I was
right
having
there.
trouble starting the show too. I was looking around like, what am I supposed to do? That's why.
I know. I was the whole time we're just like, I'm waiting for it to go live, but yeah. So we, Chris is still, off on this show because he's taking care of his son with track practice. So we're just wishing Mason the best in his track endeavors there. So hope the practice is going great. But at this time, let's bring on Gail Hayssen from a small, medium, large podcast. How are you tonight?
Good. I'm so happy to be on your show. And I just wanted to mention that there are 2 other podcasts with that title. So the persons need to type in Gail Hayssen because it's a small, medium, at large podcast with Gail Hayssen, and then they'll be able to find the right one. Okay.
Yeah. So that's very true. So we want to make sure you catch the audience, and not boost the numbers of somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, your book when's it set to be released, or is it currently out?
It's not out. I've had it sitting here for a while, and I was told by one publisher that I needed to create a internet platform. So I started a podcast thinking that I was doing it for this book that I'm hoping to get published by somebody. I know I can publish it myself, but I was kind of hoping to find a publisher. And it ended up turning out that I feel like I found my calling, that I really love doing these podcasts and I love being on shows and a guest like speaking with you. So I'm not sure what'll come of it, but I'm glad that it put me down this path.
Oh, great. Well, it was Michelle Freed. She's a mutual friend. She reached out, one of the stuff, and we told her, it's like, yeah, we'd really like to talk with you as well. And so, thanks to her. And I said, we're looking forward to it. So, because I wasn't kidding, when I said you have a lifelong, list of stories to tell. It's just, we could run through a little bit of the bio here for you as well. It's just, you've got, you started off, Woodstock attendee. So it's like you've got that experience. That's right there. There's,
in fact, let me show you. I've been in the newspaper a few different times over the years on anniversaries for Woodstock, but the 50 year was the most attention I ever had in regards to being an attendant there. And so I was in this book here called Woodstock 50 Years of Peace and Music. And I think my most thrilled part is There's numerous photos I took when I was 14 that are in this book. And they're the first photos I'd ever taken on a 35 millimeter camera because I had just turned 14. So it was a very exciting experience and event. And to be able to have it all come back again 50 years later and to go, I went back to the Woodstock site for the release of this book. This would be the most important part I'd love to share with your audience. This is my quote that was on the last page, and I'm just going to read it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, go ahead.
Right in front to the left of me, a guy came up and painted, "We are one." It was painted across the fence, right to the left of the stage, right in front of the Woodstock stage. And I thought that these 3 words captured what that event was. And I've never felt that kind of experience ever again, at least not with 500,000 people.
Yeah, no, that's yeah,
So
they've tried. They've tried. It's just not working. It doesn't have the same feel. I mean, I was going to ask. So, how does a 14-year-old get off to that concert? Did you sneak out of the house? Did your parents know you were going?
My parents knew I was going. I told them I was going, but I had an unconventional upbringing, and I was permitted to do whatever I wanted and go wherever I want. And when I was 12, I was free to do and come and go as ever I pleased. So when I left, I told my parents that I was going up to a concert. They said, fine, have a good time. My other girlfriend's parents said, there's no way we're letting you go to a concert. And just because Gail is going doesn't mean you can go.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you this one other photo. This is one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This is how close I was to the stage. I was in like the 10th row. This is John Sebastian. Whoops. Let's see.
Oh, wow.
Camera. Oh, I'm so bad at this. Oh, here we go. What? Let's see. I don't know how I've lost oh, here we are. I'm on the wrong side. There you go. So you can see that's how close I was. You see where the people are standing up?
Yep.
Wow.
So that's where I was sitting and center of the stage. And I'd gone with 4 very dear guys that I had grown up with in Flushing in New York. And because of this incident, one of them who I hadn't spoken to in 40 years found me on Facebook. And
wow.
It was really wonderful. And so we've reconnected. And he said, I've been looking for you for 40 years. And this is the beauty of internet. So we've been together now on the phone and with sending each other messages. But because of COVID, we never got to have the reunion we had planned that we were going to have together. And but it was just wonderful to get together and hear like he remembered, like I said, how come I didn't see Janis Joplin? He said, because all of you went to sleep. He said, I was the only one who stayed up that late. So we now have, answers of what went on. And I told him things he forgot. And it was just a wonderful piecing together of an incredible memory.
That was what it's I saw that and I'm just, it's incredible. I mean, because we interviewed Jerry Velez, Gerardo, who was the percussionist for Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, that was exciting.
Yeah, and so we've had somebody that was on the stage, and now we've got somebody that was actually literally looking at the stage during the performances. So that's pretty cool. We've come full circle.
And I have to say, we came filled with everything. We had as much drugs as you ever could possibly want. We had as much food and drinks as we could possibly want, and we shared everything with everybody. So the only thing we were lacking was an actual toilet kind of situation. But other than that, we didn't experience any of the stress of that kind of thing because we were so prepared.
I'm just blown away. Like today's day, I just can't imagine any parent letting a 14-year-old just go on this trek, just go to just a full concert and just like, have fun. Most of us would be freaking out now.
They're different nowadays.
I know.
The world's different. You know what I mean?
My parents were different back then. We lived in one of the first vegan communes in 1962, and my dad was making wheatgrass juice then, and nobody was making wheatgrass juice then. Now, when people come up and when the wheatgrass juice became popular, I was like, yeah, I had to drink that when I was a kid. I hated it.
I can't even bring myself to do it. I just see it, and it's this green stuff. And I'm just like, I can't.
I tried that cleanse for a day. Was it a day? And I got through 2 drinks, and that was it. I gave up. I couldn't do it. It's so bad.
that was part of our upbringing.
Yeah, and then just from there, and then you're well known in the research community, as a telepath, psychic, and remote viewer. And you're like in your bio, you talked about how you can accurately see distant and future events, which we'll get into a little bit of that tonight. There's also a chapter in telepathy. Telepathy. There, good Lord. I swear that's not my first day of talking. And this is Dr. Dean Radin's. Is it Radin or Radin?
Radin.
Okay, so
Dr. Dean Radin.
Yep, in his bestseller Supernormal, and describes some of the successful experiments that that you had, and there's the book right there. She's beat me to it. And then you've contributed in many experiments and papers on paranormal phenomena, and that's one of it. Like I said, the 70s, you worked with entrepreneur Werner Erhardt, and he presented you at a lot of the seminars that evolved around his EST training.
Yes, and I was 16 years old at the time.
Well, see, man, you're living a life where all of his parents are like, no, you're not going out of the house, and you're over there giving seminars.
Well, actually, I had my own apartment then, and I was paying rent, and I was living with my first love of my life, my boyfriend, who grew up a couple of doors down from us, like the boy next door, a half a block away, but who I had also gone to Woodstock with, but we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend then because I was 14 and he was 19. But when I left back here to come to live in California, he came with me and we lived together and had an apartment. So I had dropped out of high school and I was supporting him and I together working because he was hiding from the FBI and we were on the run. So it was an interesting year and a half.
Good God. This is one of those. It's like, man, we're going to have to bring it back for part 2. We're already talking about you're on the land. You're hiding a fugitive.
In fact, I have a quickie on the FBI. If I could just throw in a quick FBI.
Yeah, go. I'm not going to stop you. Don't threaten me with a good time.
So my grandfather was taken away by the FBI because he was in I think it was considered the Jewish mafia. I'm not sure, but he was the president of the poultry union. And if you didn't join the union, then they blew up your chicken coops. So he was an enforcer and a driver of, big trucks. And he took the fall and went to Sing Sing prison along with Tootsie Herbert, who was a very well-known Jewish mafia guy. He was called Tootsie because he was a very good-looking guy, I think, who dressed well. And my father was taken away by the FBI because him and my biological mother, who I had not known was my mother, but I thought was my father's girlfriend, and she and him were car thieves in New York. So they stole cars on Park Avenue. So I was taken to, well, not me, but she was taken to the hospital to give birth to me in a stolen 1955 Cadillac. I was born in 1955. So the FBI came to his house and he ended up going away to prison for a couple of years. And then when I was hiding with Ricky, the FBI would be coming to my house in Flushing, and they had gone and interviewed different people in the neighborhood to find out where did this draft evader go to. So when they'd come to my grandmother at the door, she didn't speak English. She only spoke Yiddish. And so she'd say, was, she couldn't answer the questions. And then I would telepathically have a dream in San Francisco. And I'd wake up and I'd say to Ricky, oh my God, I had a nightmare last night. I saw men at the door with black suits on and they were coming to get you. It would coincide exactly with when they would be coming to my house in Flushing. I would dream it in California. And I'd call up the house and my grandmother would say, "Oi, the ABC was here," She called it the ABC. So that's my little FBI story. I feel like we sort of have 3 generations of having interactions with the with the FBI.
I'm still shocked with the hits on chickens. I mean, that's just, I've heard of mob hits before, but I'm just like, the poor chickens just get whacked.
No, I heard that there was something like they would do something also where they'd put these special light bulbs in. And when the farmer came in and turned the light switch on, the bulb would explode with some kind of a horrible stench that would just like be impossible to clean up in the chicken coops or something like. I mean, these are only the little stories and snidbits I heard. But when I was reviewing things for my book, I went and actually found the news articles of when my grandfather had been arrested and how he was one of the people that Thomas Dewey, who was making a name for himself at the time, it was one of the people that he had. Thomas Dewey had was part of that whole fall of the poultry union and the Tootsie Herbert and my grandfather. So it's all written in a book called, I think, One Against the Odds or something like that. But I researched and found this because there was no family members who were going to give us this actual information. So I had to dig it up from the newspapers.
Yeah, well, this is actually the first time I've ever heard this, and that's why I've never heard about the poultry union, and these things when he's doing hits on the coops and stuff. I mean, this is just fascinating to me. I've never heard about this before.
I don't think they did anything to hurt people. It would just be the chicken, and then they would say, you better join the union, It was a threatening sort of thing, but they didn't actually kill anybody when they were blowing up these coops. I don't know
these
about
scab hoops, coops are going to be dealt with. Oh my God. And if this isn't even, we haven't even really gotten to some of the other stuff. I mean, too, when I was looking at this, especially not only have you been welcomed into several indigenous cultures into stuff, I mean, you achieved, shaman, I don't know, do they refer to it as a shamanship? I mean, do they do just like, I've become a shaman? I mean, how do they refer to that as?
They become that well, for me, I say what exactly happened to me is I had a shaman visiting here from Mongolia, and I had just met her while we were in Mongolia. I was speaking at a conference there in Mongolia, and she was one of the presenters, and she had done different shamanic ceremonies there. And about 2 or 3 months later, she came with my friend, Professor Bakbayar, who's a historian in Mongolia, and he brought her here to the United States to speak at a conference here. And after she stayed at my house and we visited, she was supposed to go on to Chicago, where there's a large group of Mongolians who've, immigrated there from Mongolia. And she was going there to do work with them. And she came back 2 days later and said, I saw spirits all around you. I have to initiate you as a shaman. Get ready. I never asked. I didn't say I want to be a shaman. But this is a powerful woman. And when she said to me, this is what we're doing, I said, okay, this is what we're doing. And when it was finished, the initiation, which was a very, we worked for 5 or 6 days preparing all these amazing things to wear on the shaman clothing. And we had to do different things to prepare the site, including things like getting large amounts of dried horse manure, because that's what they used to set on fire, except in Mongolia, it would be yak. Mm-hmm. And it was an amazing experience because we had no translator. And this is a new question I've come up with on these shows when I've been talking to people, because it just dawned on me recently. And I spoke to one researcher about it, and he said, I wish we had the money to fund something like this. When I'm doing telepathy with somebody, and I've been doing it all my life, but I just let it happen on its natural thing. I don't do professional readings or charge money or any of these kind of things. It's just whatever comes for me naturally. So I'm doing these readings for years with people, and what happens is I hear a voice in my head, and it tells me something about the person, or it shows me some kind of information. Well, I realized I've been telepathically communicating with the Huichol Indians in Mexico, the Mongolian shamans in Mongolia, and I realized neither of us speaks each other's language. So how do we telepathically communicate, which we obviously did? I can tell you amazing details of the ceremony where there was one moment she was thinking she wanted this special something, and I wouldn't know what the something was. And she's like going, I need this for the ceremony. I need this. And I run upstairs, and in my bag full of things that have been given to me over the years from shamans, I pull out this bag that was given to me in Mongolia, and it was some special Siberian herb that's used in initiation for shamanism. I didn't know why I had it, but I somehow knew that that's what she was looking for. So when I brought it down to her and I said, is this it? She just kept saying, oh, Gail, I don't know, Gail. And it wasn't until she had some filmmakers come here from UCSF, from the University of San Francisco, some Mongolian students, that when they came up here, they wanted to interview me and her about what was it to do a shamanic initiation with no translator. And that's when I heard the answer, which he, of course, translated, when he said to her, "How did you understand Gail? She only speaks English." And she said, "I can only say that when I would think of something, Gail would actually be inside my head. And that's how I would tell her what we needed." So something else to me is going on telepathically, because when I'm reading someone's mind, that seems like makes sense for me anyway, because I've done it all my life. But when I'm reading somebody's mind and we don't speak the same language, that means we're connecting some other way. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I just find it very interesting.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like we've, through some of these shows that we've done, through the Akashic records and through some of this stuff, that's kind of the theory. I mean, I'm kind of embracing that there's a universal across the board, that language is something that, we have here on the physical plane, like on Earth, we have these different languages, but there's a universal communication. That's why when
I like that word,
like the alien, like what, you have alien objections, like they're able to communicate with you. Well, it's not because you suddenly speak this alien's language. They're tapping into this universal thing that's connected to the spiritual, the soul, that's going to, and that's why all of us have this connection where through these gifts, you're able to know, like I said, you're able to sense what these people are thinking, what they're saying, even though you don't speak the same language. Like you and me can communicate. Well, obviously somebody from Mongolia, you're going to need a translator, but when you use your gift, it's just like you and me are talking. You understand it because you're tapping into this spiritual language and not the physical language.
I think you came up with the perfect word, and I have to write it down because my memory is so bad these days. Universal communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fabulous word to describe what I'm trying to say. And I couldn't put a word to it, but that's what it is. I have a Huichol friend where until cell phones, when we first met, nobody had cell phones. Mm-hmm. And him and I could only communicate from the mountains of Mexico to here by having telepathic communication, because he doesn't even have electricity or anything where he lives. He's at 10,000 feet elevation in a mountain. I would all of a sudden get a message like, "Oh my God, I have to hear from Julio. Julio's going to call me now. Julio, I need to talk to you." The phone would ring out of nowhere and there would be Julio. And we did this together for years. We even had something, which he's the only person I've ever done this with, where we dreamt together at the same time. And he came into my house because he comes to stay with us back and forth. And he is not literate. He cannot read or write. So our communication, and he's Huichol, that's his first language. Spanish is his second language. And so we've had these dreams together. We've had, like, I've known when he was hurt, or he knew when I was having something. And we've always connected in that universal communication place.
Yeah, and that I really think somebody's like, "What you drinking?" I'm drinking Mountain Dew. I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to be stuff that's a little less sugar. So
hey, real quick, I'm the taste tester when it comes to all Mountain Dew flavors.
Mm-hmm.
I tried Mountain Dew gingerbread. Not gonna lie, it's okay. It's really okay.
It's complete random, but somebody, it was a TikTok video. They're doing the Fireball whiskey with that gingerbread Mountain Dew, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is the drink!" I said
It's literally like you take Mountain Dew, you take gingerbread, put it together, it tastes just like that. I swear to God.
That's
I wanted to mention something. I saw there was a question here. I don't know if this always comes up or anything, but it was asking about what is telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the best way I would describe what telepathy is it's a form of communication where you are connecting into this invisible place and you're able to know what's in the thoughts of another person's mind. I think that might be a description of it. I have to say, I was in a very incredible. Do you want to hear about a telepathic experiment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this one is a little different than the one in Supernormal, but if anyone reads Supernormal by Dr. Dean Radin, there's a chapter in there called Telepathy, which will explain to you about telepathy for the person who's asking the question. And it will describe an experiment we did called the Gansfield experiment, which was one of the experiments that was considered accepted in the science community as proof of telepathic communication. So they can find that in the book, and it's me doing an amazing telepathy with somebody I'd met. But because of that particular thing, and because that was read by a group in Japan, I ended up being invited into a show that they were doing, a 3-hour documentary about the paranormal. And this NHK, which is the largest broadcasting company, they sent their team all around the world. They went to Uri Geller's, they went to Russia, they went to China, and they filmed and documented all these different, they were all different things, not just telepathy, but, psychokinesis, different things. And they did this documentary. So when they came here, they originally said, oh, no, we wouldn't actually be, doing anything with you, la, la, la. And by the time they finished talking to me for an hour, they said, we're filming you.
Wow.
So and this, all this stuff that I've done with other scientists and things, I don't do this. I don't get paid to do this. This is just something where I volunteer, because if it's something that may help understand or advance any of this, I'm really thrilled to be part of it. So when they asked me to go to Washington, the state of Washington, I was sent to the University of Washington, and I guess they have like a hospital there. It's some sort of a teaching hospital. And they rented the basement or whatever this hospital section was, where they had something new back then. This is about, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago or something. And it was called a functional MRI. So it's called an fMRI. So you're seeing the brain in the moment that this is doing its thing, I guess. I'm not scientific in any way. So I was sent up there, and they paid for my husband to go, and they paid for the other couple, who happened to be a contractor who did work for me, that for whatever reason, I didn't even know the guy. I could telepathically tell him all these intimate things about his life. And this is the thing. That's why I said I don't do readings, but sometimes someone walks in and all this information just floods me. And so when I told him about that, it sort of started our long-term telepathic relationship that went on for a couple of years. And I would always know things about this particular individual before he was going to get hurt, before stuff was going to happen. So they said, yes, we're going to pay for him to come. We want you and him to do telepathy in the MRI machine. I find this very funny because 2 years ago, I had to go in an MRI for a possible stroke and medical situation. And I was a complete basket case, crying, a mess. I couldn't do the thing. I felt claustrophobic. When I had a film crew filming me and I was going up to have a la-di-da experience, I hadn't experienced none of the claustrophobia. I don't know if this fMRI machine was different than the other one, and I didn't go fully in, only my head was in. But they had devices on my eyes because they wanted to see the, I can't even say, it has to do with the opticals in your eyes back into the brain and stuff. And they put it on my face like this. I was put into the machine. It was supposed to be for 20 minutes, but they were getting such good data that nobody said anything, and they did it for 40 minutes. I, in the machine, had sort of what felt like a spiritual experience in there, that with all the magnets and the clanging and all this stuff that I was mortified at when I had to do it for medical use years later, didn't seem to affect me that way. It seemed to affect me into sort of like a blitzed out state. And so I had this amazing experience in there. And what happened, we were the only second couple ever in the world to do this experiment. And it was headed up by two neuroscientists. And one of them is Dr. Leanna Standish. And she wrote a paper on it, but they never finished whatever processing, doing the rest of the paper or publishing it. So I have, some sort of a copy of something about what we did. But what it did, in fact, show that during the moment of telepathy, which is when I would be in there and my friend was in another room in the building looking at a video screen, they showed a change of blood flow in the brain during the telepathic moment. And this is something they were never able to do with a regular MRI. That's why it was a newer type of experiment.
Wow.
And at that time, they were actually hoping to get funding and send me off to Germany to do it again, because they need to replicate these things so many times before science accepts that there's, data here that's worth looking at. And
it has to be replicated in order for it to be, considered credible. It has to be replicable. You have to be able to recreate the experiment over and over again to validate the research. And so, if you can't But the conspiracy part of me just flared up. It's like they didn't publish results. I'm like, that almost sounds like something like the CIA steps in and says, hey, we need this research.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
because it was a pre-paper that was done before that was done once that was published, but it wasn't this experiment with the, where they could show the blood flow thing and all that. And in fact, I spoke to Dr. Leanna Standish because the Explore magazine that a lot of the different people we're speaking about are participants in and editors. They would be more than happy for her to submit the paper, but she has to do all the work of doing all that. And it's years later now, so I'm not sure if she's going to go through with it or not. But it was an experiment that was talked about amongst other researchers.
Well, I can imagine, because I mean, that's fantastic if you're actually physically watching it occur.
In fact, let me show you. This is, I never even think about having this ready for you, but this is a picture of my brain that was taken during that experiment. So it was 2000. Oops, there we go. How does this camera work? Is that in it now?
Yep, right there.
Okay, I do have a big nose, but this makes it look a lot bigger. It was 2013, and it was when you're doing this, they have to ask you ahead of time if you want to know anything that the neuroscientists see that could be wrong in your brain. And at that time, they said I had a brain of a teenager, and that it was a very healthy brain. But
as much as we don't want to admit it, it's probably the wheatgrass juice. It's like we don't want to credit to it, but it probably has something to do with with the grass liquid. It's like, oh.
Anyways, it was an amazing experiment, and it's showing scientifically that there is a change in the body when the moment of telepathy occurs. And they do something where they put you look at these different lights and things when you're inside the machine when you're doing the telepathy, and that's supposed to put the brain in some other state. And then all of a sudden you look at just a calm picture of a doggy running or a flower. So when you're in the waiting state before you're going to do the telepathy, you're just being shown calm photos while you're laying in the MRI. Anyways, it was very fascinating. And it was shown in the 60 Minutes of Japan. It's in the book. It's in the film. I can't remember what it's called. Something for the Paranormal. I have it here, but a lot of it's in Japanese. So it's it's hard for me to share it, but it did air in the United States, and it aired in France, and it aired in Japan on 2 different separate occasions.
And while we're talking about the scientific experiments, I know prior to the show you showed the spoon bending.
Yes, I've started putting these things at my desk because they come up in some of the questions when I'm being interviewed. I'm not a person that says when somebody says they do it that I believe that that's true. I just say it could be true. It could be not true. I don't know. I haven't seen it or done it. And that's how I felt about spoon bending. Just because they tell me Uri Geller bent spoons, I don't necessarily know that that's true. Maybe there was a trick. Maybe there was something else. I don't know. And so I never said, oh, yeah, I believe in spoon bending. But I was at an International Remote Viewing Association conference in Las Vegas. And there was a gentleman, Jack Huck, and he was known to be an amazing teacher of spoon bending. And he would have what they call spoon bending parties. And he would bring boxes of spoons and forks, and he would lay them all out on a tablecloth on the floor inside one of the banquet rooms in the hotel where these conferences would be. And so I went down with another, I don't know, maybe there was 150 people that all went. And we all walked around and we looked at the spoons and the forks, and he said, pick the one that you feel drawn to. And I picked the spoon, and as I'm looking at the spoon, and he says, you got to sit there and hold the spoon, and it's the intention that you scream, bend, bend, bend. So I'm doing this with the spoon, and nothing's happening, and I'm thinking, well, I can't do this. I'm not a bender. And there's a little old lady behind me who was just visiting, not even interested in this sort of thing, and she was just holding the spoon, and it was just melting over as she was holding it. And I was like, oh my God, she didn't even hardly touch this thing and it's melting. So that's when I said, wait a minute, I have to be able to do this also if this little old lady can do this.
Yeah.
So I went back to the pile of silverware on the floor and I said, okay, who's going to call to me? Who's going to call to me? And it turned out it was a fork, not a spoon. So I got the fork in my hands, and here's the fork. So you can so you can see it. And I think you can see the, it's important for you to see how it's twirled around in a few places. Do you see how that's the part there? You see that? So that's twice twirled around. And what happened was, as you were going like this, they said, rub your fork like this, or your utensil. And when you feel there's a moment where it sort of gets hot and everything just turned to liquid. And the only way I can explain it is those are the words, but that's what it felt like. And at that moment, when it felt like liquid, I just went like this, and the fork just turned around effortlessly. I just touched the tongue like this, and it just bent down.
Huh.
So when I try to, I've never been able to unbend it with all my force to try and put it back to be a flat fork again. And I had to have it inspected by my friend Russell Targ, who's been studying these things and used to work with Uri Geller. And he looked at it and he said, yes, this is a true bending because of the fact that this is twirled around at the base of the fork twice. So it got approval.
Wow.
And I've done a few, I'm not a bender. It's not something that I just, everybody has like different things that's really comes easy for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my, my gift or my talent or anything, but I can truly say that now I know that spoon bending is real.
Wow. It was one of those, when you showed that, I was like, okay, I gotta ask her about that. I wasn't originally on the plan, but as soon as you showed it, I'm like, okay, we got to talk about the spoon. Yeah. So it's just, I was just really fascinated with, when you're talking about like walking the hot coals, as with the Siberian shamans, it's just, and I've always been that. So how does it work? Because I always feel like there's got to be some sort of coating that's put on the feet. Because
I cannot tell you. I can tell you the experience, but I have no idea. I just called it that something magic had to be there, because I was speaking about this on another show, and I said, when I tell this to you, people, do not go out and put a bunch of coals out and start running across them, because you will probably burn your feet. Don't do this.
Yes.
But the reason we did this was because Vladimira, who came from Russia, was a Siberian shaman, I think Siberian. And she had said to me, she'd come to my house many times to do different ceremonies and rituals. And one day she came to visit, because she would come like twice a year from Russia. And she said, this time we're going to do walking on hot coals. So invite our friends. So we had like 10 people that came. And she had my son, who loves to play with fire, make a nice bed of coals that he had to tend to for quite a few hours, until the coals were like really red, burning coals, very established. And it was in the evening in the dark. And she said, now's the time. Now we're going to do this. And I thought my son was going to join us. And as he was there tending the coals, my son Richard was saying, Ma, I think I'm going to pass on this. He said, they're really red hot coals and I'm not going to do this. He said, but you can go ahead. So I'm looking at it and I'm hesitating myself, and I'm thinking to myself, how could she make this? I said, if you touch one little thing on your stove, it burns, and you're not even touching a hot coal. So I was afraid to do it. And I watched these other people coming, like she would hold their hand and they would run across the coals, and they'd come back at the other end with like this amazing look on their faces. Like you could feel they had a powerful experience just now. So I was still sitting there debating when she just said, come, Gail. And she just grabs my arm, because we had taken off all our shoes and socks in preparation for this. And we run across the coals. And when we run across the coals, I cannot believe that I have not burnt my feet, and that there is no pain at all whatsoever, but a feeling of incredibly powerful exhilaration coming up through the body. So I ended up doing it 6 times. So, after I went through once and I knew I said, okay, I want to do this again and again. So we did this again and again. My son's still watching. He's seeing that I'm not getting burned, but he still says, I'm not going on these hot coals.
Yeah.
I can't give you an answer, but my thought is that there's something that the shaman knows what to do in preparation, or some kind of protective thing. I can't answer that. I have no idea why that did not burn, but it did give you a tremendous amount of sense of power, and that you were in like a really centered, focused place.
Well, it has to be an absolute rush. I mean, just the fact that, the adrenaline rush, just the fact that you're going on to something that is supposed to have that effect that, this is going to, you're going to start smelling the, cooked bacon smell, like everything's just burnt, burger type thing by the time you're halfway through the experiment. But when you get done, you're like checking and there's not even a blister. That just has to be an absolute mind altering experience.
I live in a 15-acre apple orchard. So we have a lot of trees. On another ritual separate from that, she blindfolded us and had us walk all around this orchard where people's eyes could be poked out by a branch off a tree. And you had to just follow the sound of her voice and get in touch with the part of you that doesn't use your eyes. And you navigated around, and I'm thinking, oh God, somebody's going to get hurt and sue me. What's going to happen here? It was a beautiful ritual, and it went beautifully. And nobody fell, nobody got hurt. People just wandered, and you got started. I think maybe it helps you to use your third eye more than the eyes that we see when you cover them up like that.
I'm just picturing this is like a prank, and she just starts lobbing apples at you as you guys are walking around, just smacking it, just seeing who could use her intuition to dodge it. You see Josh over there just take one right to the face, just smack it with. Oh my God. Yeah, that's just, yeah. I mean, this sounds like this lady is just one of those, it is an experience, interacting with her. Cause I mean, hot coals, just the blindfolding, man.
Each shaman that has come here, I was involved in a conference called Shamanism and Alternative Modes of Healing. And it was founded by a woman. In fact, I'm going to be doing a pre-record show about her named Ruth Inga Hines. And she was an amazing, brilliant University of Berkeley professor who was from Germany. And her studies of Asian shamanism is just phenomenal, volumes and volumes of information. So she would bring these shamans in from all over the world. So in her 3-day thing, it was always on, is it Labor Day or Memorial Day? It's a 3-day weekend. We would be experiencing rituals and ceremonies from people from Laos, from Vietnam, from Ecuador, Peru. They were coming from all over the world, and you'd be seeing them all in a 3-day period, sharing their different modes of ceremony, whether it was drumming or making fires or whatever the different things they did. So for those years, I got exposed and educated about a lot of different shamans and shamanism, and I would invite them to come back to my house and stay here and see a little bit of the redwood trees and the ocean here. So it's a beautiful place for shamans to go, and also to be able to cleanse their own selves. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I ended up getting all these amazing experiences of having people come here. So I got exposed and made a lot of wonderful different shamanic friends through that.
Yeah, in 2014, you were awarded an honorary doctorate from the Mongolia's National Academy of Sciences.
I have to say, being a high school dropout and having my two sisters ask me, when am I going to get a high school diploma?
I don't need it. I'm a doctor.
I got a GED when I was 18 because I wanted to make sure they knew that I did that. But, and I was, by the way, even though I was a high school dropout, I was in the gifted program. I had a very high level of reading, and, I wasn't dropped out of school because I couldn't handle the curriculum. I was bored there. But I dropped out of high school because I came to live with my dad in a pickup truck and go up and down the coast of California and live in communes and see, in the 70s, or it was 1970, 1971. It was a pretty exciting time here in California with a lot of self-help groups. That's how we met the Werner Erhard bunch. And there was a lot of Native American tribes, the Rolling Thunder and Sun Bear. And, so you got to see all the different things that were going on at that time. So we really had a great experience doing that.
I'm not saying everybody needs to, go this route, but I mean, talk about, let's say we could go sit in classes for, every day for eight years, go into a lot of debt, or we could go to Woodstock and just go on all these things. and end up in the same place. You're in a doctorate. You have, you have one that has a lifetime experience, and you have other ones with lifetimes of regret from all the stuff they have to do. And
Well,
you both have doctorates.
when I was 18, I opened up my own store. I became a buyer in the produce markets in San Francisco, and nobody was buying in the produce markets in San Francisco at that time, 1973. And I opened up from an empty building I had. I opened up a, health food store, grocery, fruit stand combination thing for 3 years that I learned more in there than I would have ever learned in any high school, as far as knowing about accounting and bookkeeping and advertising and marketing, and and also had to get into a situation where the men wouldn't take my order in the produce market because, and I'm only 4'11", they wouldn't take it. I'd say, I'd like to get this, I'd like to get by 5 boxes of lettuce here, and they would just look at me and go and walk off. No one would take my order. So to break into that area where it was all Italian men at 3:00 in the morning, I feel like it's one of my accomplishments that I was able to branch into an area where women were really not produce buyers back then. And
Impressive.
And then I built my own catering business in my 30s, and I built a commercial kitchen myself. And when I say that, I mean, my dad was putting the hood in, and, we did everything. And the education I got from learning how to do these things and create these businesses was definitely more than I was getting. I'm not saying people shouldn't have an education, but for me, it was a much better route. So to be given this honorary PhD, I didn't really think it was like real. And then someone said to me, no, the only person who can take this away from you is the University of Mongolia, because they gave it to you. And that's the difference between a PhD that you get when you're going through years and years of schooling. No one can ever take that PhD away from you. So so that's what the honorary PhD, but I never say, I don't put it next to my name or anything, but they did fly out here from Mongolia and had a whole ceremony to present it to me. They presented it to me at the shamanism conference. So in front of 100 people, I received this award and this certificate. And it really was a beautiful thing, because I always felt like I'm doing all these things and I have no titles and I have no anythings. And I was being honored and seen by the Mongolian people. I had to go all the way to Mongolia to be seen. But they turned me into a shaman. They gave me the honorary degree. And then following the year later, I received another degree from them, which is a medal. You'll probably see it on my website. It's a medal, and, everything it has a special stamp when it's been government, approved there. And everything's written in Mongolian. It was a medal for bringing information about Mongolia to your own country. Things that had involvements with Mongolia and you was the reason you would receive this award. So if you, like Secretary of State James Baker, received this medal, I was the first woman to ever receive this medal in Mongolia. They give it out every 4 years, and it's given out to, showing gratitude for the participation you've done with their country. So I'd done things like presentations in universities, like I was at Duke University for the Rhine Research, and Rhine Research invited me to be a guest, and I showed all slideshows of Mongolian shamanism and Huichol peyote ceremony, and these things ended up opening up these eyes of whatever scientists were there, and it was very well received. In fact, the woman who you just passed, she is the head, back then she was the head of the Rhine Research. In this photo of us together in this interview, she's 91 years old now, and her father, J.B. Rhine, is the man who coined the word ESP, extrasensory perception. It didn't exist before him, and he was also the first person to bring parapsychology to Duke University, and he was on the campus there for many, many, many years. Now they have their offices there, but they're not actually part of the university. And it's a beautiful interview. And the thing I have to say about these people is that I'm interviewing people that are 80 years and up, and their minds are as sharp and as brilliant and as on top of it as you could ever possibly imagine. And they're all in the fields of parapsychology and paranormal research. And they're brilliant people.
Yeah, there's
People saw the video and said, no, she can't be 91 years old. I said, yeah, she's amazing.
yeah, well, there's a few people. I mean, it's even like William Shatner. It's like you look at him, it's like you wouldn't think that he's in his 90s. I mean, it's like you see some of these people, it blows you away. They're like, what? I mean, I know there's plastic surgery and all, but I mean, God, you look at this guy, and it's like I wouldn't even peg him for 90.
No, and he's going up that ladder all the way up into the spaceship. I mean, it's amazing. And anyways, I find them very inspirational, and I'm really honored that they would let me interview them and be on my podcast. So I'm just really happy to have these. It's also for me like having a little history of all our stories together.
When that, I'm not sure, in talking about your, because once again, it's a small, medium at large podcast with Gail Hayssen is the name to look at that. But one of those, I'm not sure what your onset was. Mine, I grew up listening Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM. I listened to all these. So I listened to these shows, and when I started looking like podcasts, one of the things I always look for stuff, and when I can't find it, I just finally decided it's like, why not have a show and make the episodes myself? If I can't find them, why not just talk about it myself? And so I don't know if that was kind of where you sat out, on these things, just kind of just to talk about the things that you have, so.
I have to say, I didn't think anyone's going to want to hear my stories, but apparently I was on a show the other day, Leak Project, and in two to 3 days, I had 19,000 views.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And my like when you get on these shows where so many people listen, then your podcast subscribers just double. I mean, I went from, in 2 days, I went from 250 subscribers to 550 subscribers. And it was, it's like, who knows these things? I'll have to say the best part that I like about this is that I'm meeting, I'm home here. I haven't left the house for 2 years now. And I was always somebody who traveled the world. So for me to stay home has been really something. But I've had Mongolians come to visit. My niece is here from New York. So people are coming here. So I'm still having wonderful interactions. But this whole podcast thing has opened me up to be able to have conversations with people that after I talk to them, it's like, oh, I have the same experience. And it makes you feel so comforted inside when someone says, oh, yes, I see that dead spirit, or, oh, yes, I've had that UFO experience, or whatever this is that mainstream may not want to hear about. It's now not being hidden anymore because of people like you, and now I guess people like me, who are trying to bring other stories and information to people out there, because it's this, some people won't share things that have happened to them, especially in psychic experiences when they've only had a few and it frightens them. And when they hear someone describe exactly what they experienced, there's comfort to that for somebody. So my whole goal is now that people are actually listening to me is that any of the stories, if it helps them to open up to something or helps them to share or does some kind of a healing, then we've done our work. I'm not motivated here. There's nothing I'm doing here for money. I'm not giving these talks.
Yeah, no, that was the thing. It's like there's some people, they come into it from, like, how am I going to make money off this? Well, there's only a few people that do that. Joe Rogan, last podcast on the left. I mean, there's very few people that make a lot of money doing this. I'm
paying money to do this for someone to manage it for me. So it's not only is it not making me money, I'm spending money.
Yeah, I think just the inside baseball. I think for a lot of people, it's like we pay about $60 a month.
Wow.
To do, for the stuff here. So that's one of those things where it's just, and it's not about the money. I mean, it's like downloads. I just laugh when I see people that, and I'm not sure how your show's, been received so far, like downloads. Like I'll watch these people and there'll be people saying, hey, I need help, everybody. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I only have, I've got a couple shows out there and I'm only at, 4,000 downloads. I'm like, we're just now hitting 5,500. I go, I don't know what I'm like, and we've done this for almost 2 years. So I'm like, I've started like, what am I doing wrong? Because
But, I have not even looked, because I have Michelle's company, LITM, doing this for me. So
Mhm.
I don't post any of these things. And I'm a computer, illiterate. I'm just completely not a good computer person. And so, in fact, when I was trying to look for you, I couldn't remember, where did he send me that? Was it this? You have so many places messages come now. You're not sure where
Yep.
they come from. So I'm so grateful to have them doing this and booking me on shows, and then, putting my podcast together with music, etc. But I'm making friends with people in different places that I really feel a close bond with, that we're continuing, even though I'm not on their show again right now. We continue communicating with each other and seeing how each other is and sending each other messages.
Yep.
I'm meeting people in other countries. So that's a really wonderful thing about the podcast, and about having somebody else do that for you, because I wouldn't know how to do all those things. So he sends me a message. David sends me a message. That's Michelle's son. I had 3,000 YouTube something or others. I don't know what it was. It's something. It's not subscribers. It's some other place where you whatever. And now I have 3,000 of them. He says that's really good. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's views or something like that. But yeah, I mean, still, that's impressive.
And I
Yeah.
don't even know where to find it or do it. So, anyways, so this all started over with the silly book idea, and I thought, and I did not want to do a podcast at all. And now I feel like I found my calling, and that this is what I'm going to be doing for a long time, because I really love the experience.
It really is. For anybody that doesn't understand, it's when you first do it, it gets really nervous. I mean, like right now, I don't even really pay attention to the camera. Half the time I'm looking at doing other stuff, and I have to remind myself to look at the camera, it's just because I'm doing other things. But it's the thing I like about this is it's opened up the avenue to where it just, in regular life, you and me, there's very low probability that the two of us would ever have crossed paths, and let alone had these conversations. But here we are, and I'm learning about Jewish mob hits on chicken coops, that I've never known before. I said, this is the cool stuff about this, that I'm just, the shamanic ritual. I mean, these are things that I would never have had the opportunity had I not got with the guys and done this show. And that's the part I love.
Well, I see you have a person's question. I don't know if it's just one question comes up, but it says, what about psychic dreams, that they've had psychic dreams? So I want to say that psychic dreams have been one of the most important friends for me in my life. Having a psychic dream, the part about it is that you have to listen to the message. Some people wake up and they forget the message, or they just oh no, that's just silly, or whatever. It was just a dream. It wasn't just a dream. It was information being given to you, whether it's from your higher self, or from angels, or from the universe, or God, or whatever you think is that connection.
Yep.
The thing is then to take that and make sure to listen to it. So I'll tell you a psychic dream, so that maybe the person will understand how, yes, this is really an important thing that you're talking about. I was here. My daughter was about, I don't know, maybe she was 10 or 8 or something like that. And my sisters were here visiting from New York and brought their kids, and we were having a whole little family get together with all the little kids. I go to sleep that night, and I have a dream that I'm supposed to go to Taos, New Mexico, of all places, to a place called the Hanuman Temple, that I knew about because I was at a Ram Dass retreat, and I had met the head of the temple, and he had said, if you ever have any of these experiences I've seen you have here, please call us or come to our temple. So I have this dream that there's a man I'm supposed to meet at the temple, and that I must get an airplane ticket tomorrow and go there right away. I said to my sisters, I have to leave now. I know you're here from New York. If you could just enjoy the family, I'll be back in a few days. I fly blindly to Albuquerque, New Mexico, have no idea. I'm all by myself. I rent a car, and I go driving off to this Taos, New Mexico, to this Hanuman temple. And it turns out they're having a big celebration that weekend called, I think, the Bandara. It's some very special Hindu celebration where there's a lot of flowers and a lot of food, and people come from all over to this little small place. I go walking up to the front of the entrance of the temple where I'm about to go greet the guy that was the head of the temple. And I see this man on the side, and he's very handsome. Not saying I don't love handsome men. He's very handsome. And I look at him and I just go up to him, and I don't realize until I've started speaking over and over. I said, "You're the man in my dream." I said, "I know I'm supposed to meet you." And I'm thinking, is he thinking because he's good looking? I just trying to flirt with him.
Yeah.
Well, turns out he didn't speak a word of English. He was a Huichol Indian from the mountains of Mexico. I never knew anything about the Huichol. I had just seen one ceremony once, a couple months earlier, at some little thing here in a small town, where I'd gone in and they had a couple Huichols, and I saw the embroidered, beautiful clothing. And that was it. I never heard the name Huichol, never knew anything about them. And then I said this to him. I said, I was supposed to meet, and then I start with my Spanish, which is, más o menos. But we start to communicate, and he shows me that he's an artist. And he says, if you want to come and to where I'm staying in Albuquerque, come and visit me, and I'll show you my artwork if you would like to buy any. So I said to him, well, I'm going to be doing some sightseeing here, and I'd be happy to take you since you've never been to the United States before. So I go to his place. He shows me a yarn painting, which is one of the things that the Huichols do. They press yarn into beeswax. I have all these kind of paintings I could show you, but I didn't know I'd talk about this. And they sell these pieces of art. Well, this one was a depiction of a shaman healing a child. And I buy this picture from him, and I say to him, let's go off to this bandolier where all the cave dwellers were. And I bring him to this national park. And I'd never seen anybody. He was flying up and down the ladders, like height meant nothing to him. He had no fear about going inside these different, caves and dwellings, no matter how high up they were. And so we ended up down inside a kiva where they do ceremony, and the rain came, and we just did this little shamanic ceremony, just the two of us together in this amazing, Native American historical spot. And then I said to him, well, if you ever come to California, you're welcome to come and visit me. Well, that dream was the start of my involvement. I have been involved with the Huichol Indians now for more than, my son is 30, he's 31, 32, no, 31. And it was way before he was born. So it's about 35 years I've been involved with them. And to this day, I have my friend Julio here right now, and we have a special, spot on the land for him. And I've brought food and clothing with my father. I drove from my house all the way to the mountains of Mexico and brought food and clothing and shoes for 150 families. And I gathered it all myself. You'd think I was, I've never done fundraising or anything, but I did clothes and clothes and shoes. There you go. There's a yarn painting. Exactly. And that would be, these are the special wands here that's used. It's feathers off of a stick, and that's what the shaman uses when he's blessing you. I also was there when I discovered I had cancer, and I did work with the shamans there on my cancer, and I do believe they truly helped me. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but I was given the dried blood of the deer that's pounded in mortar and pestle, and then you just scoop it up with a tortilla. And I was given this when I discovered that I truly had cancer. I didn't believe I had cancer when the doctors told me, because my father raised us with no doctors or dentists, so I figured they were making it up. When I went there and they told me the shaman does my body and he gets down to my crotch, which is I had cervical cancer, he said, oh, you have something inside there. It has to be taken out. You need to get, you're sick there. So I became terribly depressed. I was crying up at the top of the mountain there. And my friend's father, who was in his 90s, I think at the time, is the one who prepared that for me. He said, this is their cure for things like this. In fact, I do have one photo right here. This is Huichol women. It's where I'm visiting them. And this is my friend's wife and his sister-in-law. And that's a Huichol clothing. And I do have quick photos here. Here's my dad, who's My dad and my husband are the only two men that I ever brought there in my 6 or 7 trips I've been there. And this is in front of, you can see the hut. It's a grass type hut. And my dad's, hugging this nice Huichol young man. And my dad blew them away because at that time, the only way to get to the sacred ceremonial grounds called Las Latas was, and today you still cannot drive to that place. You have to walk, but you can drive to an area near it and walk. But back then you had to walk the 16 hours or whatever it was through high, treacherous mountain to get to this place. And in another interview, I'd have all these photos to show you. So in these sacred ceremonial grounds, I bring my dad, and he doesn't understand that we're with, a culture that's from thousands of years ago. The Huichol Indians, I think they're connected to the Mayans.
Probably.
I think it's the Mayans. And this particular group went way up into the mountains so that they avoided the Christianity that was being brought into the tribes that lived in the lower areas closer to Puerto Vallarta and that area. So he doesn't understand that. He goes in there and he says, I don't understand. There's no chimney here. He says, everybody's living here with no chimney. All the smoke is inside. And well, this is a different culture and they haven't gotten the chimney thing down yet, So he does this thing where he takes his shirt off, and no man does that there. It doesn't matter that it's 100 degrees and the sun is blazing and you're at 10,000 feet elevation. You do not take your shirt off. And they're Native American, or I don't know if that's how you call it, but they're Indian people and they are hairless. They don't have hair on their chest. So my dad takes off the shirt and he sort of looks like a gorilla with all the hair in there, and everybody's eyes just drops like this. And I start yelling at him, and a woman is a second-class citizen. It's a different culture. The woman is not in charge. The man is in charge. So you don't yell. A daughter doesn't yell at a father. So they're looking at me, screaming at my dad, saying, put your shirt on, put your shirt on. You can't go out here. He says, but I'm hot. I said, it doesn't matter. You've got to wear your shirt here. So he was, he was so moved by my experience there, knowing how I felt that I wanted to help these people in any way that I could, whether I don't want to change them in any way. I don't want to bring them American clothing, but I want to bring them jackets and shoes because it gets very cold there in the winter. And there's kids running around with no shoes. And I would always have, which is part of my telepathy or psychic or whatever you want to call the gifty thing. I always, if I set out to manifest certain material objects for people, I just walk in. So I happened to walk into a shoe store that was going out of business. And I said, well, I'm bringing these to the Native Americans and the Huichols. They sold me all the shoes for like $5 a pair. And they were the shoes that light up back in that time. That was the first new thing where kids had those sneakers. So I was there for the peyote ceremony twice. I was there for the ceremony of the corn. And that's like a celebration for children where all this food is brought and children are brought in to be blessed and healed from their sicknesses or whatever the problems are. They're brought in front of the shamans. And it turns out that it's also the celebration of the marigold flower, which is very important to them. So there's strings of marigolds everywhere. Well, I don't know this. I don't know any of these things because I've never read anything up on the Huichols. I just blindly go into these things all the time. I'm not an intellectual. I don't read up a million things and then I'm able to regurgitate it back. I can't do that. I just have experiences. So I go there and I've got my dad and we are having this wonderful connection with these people. And what do I bring? Packages of marigold seeds. Had no idea that this is what the ceremony is about. I bring shoes for 100. I thought it was about corn. I didn't know it was about children. I bring shoes. I bring over 50 or 60 pairs of shoes. And when the shamans see the lights, because, it's when you talk about dark blackness there is no light there except your fire or your flashlight. When darkness comes, it is pitch black dark there. And a Huichol person can see in the pitch black dark. A little white lady can't. Anyways, so the shamans all come to me and they say there were two things I brought on that trip that all the shamans wanted. They wanted the shoes that light up. I said, they don't make them for adults. They only make them for children. I couldn't get this expressed enough,
Yeah.
Everyone wanted the light up shoes. And there was a I had people donate toys. I told families that I knew if you have jackets and shoes, so everything I brought was used things that were being recycled back there. And there was a cat that someone sent that when you'd like touch the cat, it would meow. Every shaman wanted that cat, but I had brought it for a child,
And they just, yeah, wow.
So it went to the children. And I'm just saying that's the intuitive part of me, that she goes to a ceremony, knows nothing about it, brings exactly the seeds of the flowers that they grow for this. And, and I can't give you an answer. How do I know that? I don't know. It's just that if I listened to my inner voice, it guided me. There was lots of packages of flowers. I was guided to get the marigold ones. And then it's sort of a validation that's my own personal experience. And no matter how many times I have psychic things happen in my life, or, whether it's yesterday or 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. It always feels like a surprise to me. I never take it for granted. I never say, oh, of course I know that. Or, oh, yes, I told you that was it. That's not my approach. My approach is like, all of a sudden it's like, whoo, that's right. So that's how I roll.
But I can't think of a better way to end it. Right there. As I said, it's amazing how fast an hour and 10 minutes goes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we're good. We're good. It usually goes. No, I lay out. It doesn't matter how I do my notes, how I lay this stuff out. It's one of those things. I let the universe steer the conversation, because there's nothing worse than having a scripted thing and you refuse to go off script, because then it feels forced. And so
I feel like one story always leads into the next story, and I don't know where to stop, and I don't mean to be fragmented, but I have a lot of stories.
Yeah, and that's what's fantastic. And so, I mean, for anybody that wants more of this, like I said, I think down the road we're definitely, needed to get, touch back with you, and have you back on, continue this. Go to, they got to go check you out on your podcast, a small, medium, at large podcast with Gail Hayssen. Just go watch that. YouTube. She's on Facebook. Go like that, follow her there. Are you on Twitter as well?
Yes, I'm on all these. I think I'm on like 10 different things, but I've never.
Yeah. So just go like, subscribe, follow that. Sky, Chassis, Jaron, I guys really appreciate you coming. Mona, it's, Ron was in here. We had Mark getting, it's just, I want to appreciate everybody, watching, and commenting and stuff. This has been a lot of fun. And go ahead.
I just want to entice them to the show we just released today, because it's about a man who wins $500,000 for an essay he writes about the afterlife, and that a billionaire jet, I think he's to do with space or something, but this billionaire man decided to set up a contest. It's called the Bigelow Contest, and now it's called BICS if you go on a web or something. And there'll be 29 published papers that this man put up $1.8 million of his own money to give awards to these people who would write the best information that they had gathered in essays about life after death. And he's now taking the 29 ones. It'll be on that website I just told you about, but he's publishing it into a book and giving it free to hospice, hospitals, doctors, and people that are in the field of dealing with death and illness, because this is, essays of factual proof of life after death. So they might be interested in that show.
Was that Brandon?
The man who did it is named Mr. Bigelow. Mr.
Brandon Fugel.
He was a friend of. Oh God, I don't know who he's not a friend of. I don't know him. He's just the man who put up this contest.
Maybe this Bigelow that used to be with Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes, I think that's what's his first name. I have
Robert Bigelow.
Robert Bigelow, that's it. And apparently a very nice man who said nobody supports the research of these people this way. And so I'm going to set up this, and he's very, very pleased. And our interview is with Jeffrey Mishlove, who won the first prize, hands down. All 6 judges said his 95-page essay on life after death, or I have the title here somewhere, is they said there was just hands down the winner of this contest, and the other 28 people won small. Someone won 300,000 and 10,000. So prizes were given out to all those people. So it's a beautiful thing to know that there's someone out there with a lot of money that really is wanting to assist in this research to be public for people.
Yeah, that is cool. That's, I said, Gail, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I said, everybody, please go support her. She's got a book that's going to be coming out, so watch out for that too. So we'll get that one. As soon as she has that one out, it was like, definitely let us know. Like I said, we'll have you back on for that. So,
well, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Everybody, go to threebeardspodcast.com, merchandise section right there. That's how you can support us, or you can go to redbubble.com/threebeardspodcast or patreon.com. Three Beards Podcast. Support us that way. Adopt one of our beards. Check us out on all the social media. Like, subscribe, follow. Help us get to TikTok. Help us get to 1,000 followers. We're at 81. We're so close. Yeah. So we're gonna be rebroadcast on ERRT Radio at 11 p.m. on Wednesdays, courtesy of Ron. He was really nice to bring us on there, so we thank him for that. We're also rebroadcast on Patriot Radio on Thursday nights, starting at 10 p.m. Thanks to J&J Beard Company for that. Like I said, Ron, thank you again for putting us on the, rebroadcasting us. So everybody, please go check out A Small, Medium, at Large podcast with Gail Hayssen. Go support her and tell her thank you for coming on the show. And everybody, once again, thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Thank you.